The views and opinions expressed during this program are not necessarily those of Overseas Radio Network, the Expat Broadcasting Group, the staff, management, or broadcast partners. All information provided is for educational purposes only. Before taking action, consult a licensed professional.
The Coast to Coast.
Check 1, 2. Testing.
Now hear me.
You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica.
Once the volume control is set, do not readjust.
On the Overseas Radio Network.
Radio. That's why I want you to go on the radio.
This Week in Costa Rica, bringing you the latest information from expats, experts, and people just like you who chose to escape, retire, and live in Costa Rica.
Listen and decide in your own mind what sounds best.
Got a question? A comment?
They have to be dealt with on an altogether different level.
Or just want to talk to an expert on living in Costa Rica?
Brother, what a way to make a living.
Give us a call now.
Hello?
Lines are open and your answers are just one phone call away.
Now, if you have some suggestions to offer, we're willing to listen to you.
Ready?
This Week in Costa Rica with your host,
Who you?
Corey Coates.
And now, folks, it's showtime.
Welcome to This Week in Costa Rica. Another beautiful Monday afternoon coming to you from Jaco Beach, the Overseas Radio Broadcast Facility here on the West Coast. It's a beautiful jewel of a nation, my expatriation destination. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Another thanks goes out to Andrew Woodbury for joining me in studio today. Andrew, how are you?
I'm all right, Corey. How are you?
I am amazing. Living the life, living the dream. I want to thank you for coming in today because, look, we got a lot of feedback from the last hour of last week's show. When we talked all things ESL and specifically about opening the TESOL Center here in Costa Rica. So I think it's a good chance for you and I to sit down and address some of the big questions that did come up.
Oh, good. No, I'm happy to hear about the feedback and absolutely, let's hit it.
Well, you know, because as we speak on this, Costa Rica is a major English as a second language destination for many teachers, and a great number of them are interested in how can they get that certification. How can they move down here and how can they make a go of it? I mean, for a lot of expats, teaching English abroad is really that stepping stone to living in a foreign country.
That's it. I mean, it's a humongous market here, in big part because Costa Rica is a place in this area of the world that people gravitate to, and that they look to do that here in Costa Rica. And we're opening the school to allow people to or give people a better chance to do that.
I want you guys to stick around today. We've got a lot to talk about. We're only going to be doing 1 hour because, frankly, we're super busy here getting the school opened up. A lot of activity circulating around that. We are going to be speaking about that within this hour. But if you guys want to send us an email and talk about this at any point, you certainly can. And that's going to be info@This Week in Costa Rica. Coming up on today's show, I am going to be talking to Dan Stevens as well from the Costa Rican Times about what's going on in the Central Valley. And I'm really excited to say, Woody, I got coming up on segment 4 today. A fellow by the name of Doug Smith, and he runs a little company that we had on the show a while back called willspy.com, and he does private investigation services here in Costa Rica. And I'd love to speak to you a little bit about this because, honestly, I've got mixed feelings about it.
Okay,
let me look at it this way because, I'm a single guy down here in Costa Rica, yeah?
You are?
And a single guy down in Costa Rica has an opportunity to, meet a lot of young, beautiful single women in Costa Rica, right?
Well, that's true.
And I have, and I'm happy to enjoy dating a lot of girls here and kind of see what my options are. But there are
good for you.
Thank you. But there are real concerns for an expat, or more specifically, a North American coming down to Costa Rica and getting themselves involved in a relationship with a girl.
Well, yeah. I mean, the dating world here is a little bit more complicated than maybe where we're from. We're both Canadian, but the U.S., Canada, maybe a little bit more complicated as we're seen a little bit differently. So there is something to be said for being a little bit more careful with who you choose to associate with and who you choose to take that next step with.
Well, I'm not necessarily naive, but I do definitely take on that naivete that is common in Costa Rica for those individuals who live in a position as I do. For example, let me put it this way. I live in a nice place on the west coast of Jaco. So I'm living in a beautiful condominium. I look like I'm doing quite well.
Yes, you do.
And the concern is when I get myself into a relationship with an individual, is she seeing me for what my success is, or is she seeing me for who I am and interested in me as a person?
Yeah, that's always the question. And it's tough to ask. I mean, you don't want to be thinking like that, but to be honest, I mean, you kind of have to, at least a little bit. When you have a nice place and a nice job and you're here not from Costa Rica, there is that wonderment maybe that why does she like me, or does she like kind of being with me for other reasons?
Well, here's the reality is that, even as an expat, even as a Canadian, especially as a Canadian, we're seen as, well, let's face it, bottom line, we're seen as rich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for me, a young guy, I'm not young, but I guess 38, that's young, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, you're so kind. I really appreciate that. At 38, I'm sitting here and I'm dating some girls that are really nice in their early 30s. But it looks like, I'm trying to find the way to put this politely without being controversial about it. But I think there's no way I can step around it lightly other than to say I'm a walking passport and a ticket out of Costa Rica in the eyes of a lot of Costa Ricans.
Right. And we say that not because it's wrong or whatever, but that is something that happens with people that maybe a little bit older than what you are, Corey. But that is whatever word you want to use, but it is the reality of Latin America. I wouldn't say Costa Rica, but in Latin America, that is a reality.
Well, there's two things you said there I want to address. One, thank you for acknowledging there are people older than I am. I think that's kind.
Some people.
Yeah, very
Not
few.
most people, but some.
There's one or two out there. I think the oldest man in the world is 116, so way to go. The second, though, is that, you're right, is that when I'm sitting in a town like Jaco here on the West Coast, and I'm fairly well-to-do, and I am a foreigner, and I speak Spanish well, and I've been in Costa Rica for 6 or 7 years, there is a perception that I am a really good opportunity for a lot of young women in this country. And I'm skeptical when anyone who is not, let's say, upwardly mobile within their profession or career-driven as a young woman is interested in going out with me. I have to say, in the back of my mind, the question is raised, is she interested in me, or does she like the fact that I'm a Canadian, ergo rich, which is obviously, we know, absurd, but still, that's the perception, and an opportunity to get out of this country.
But I'm not sure how this conversation turned into all about you specifically, but yeah,
it's my show.
You're right. That's always a consideration. Disclaimer: I've lived here for 3 years, and I have not found myself in that situation. I've dated girls here, and they've been really nice, and I have not, to my knowledge anyway, been in that kind of situation. But that is something that you need to think about and not be so naive to think that could not happen, because it very well could happen.
Let me put it to you this way. This is what I'm actually spiraling towards. It's the point. And the point is why I called Doug Smith and why I'm going to talk to him in the fourth segment of this particular show is because, he raises a fair point. And this is where I was having kind of those mixed emotions, is that if I were to get myself seriously involved with a girl here, and I feel like there is a future in this relationship, Doug strongly recommends that you spend the $300 to $400 to have a private investigator do a background check on her, do a little bit of research. Is she involved in any shady situations? Is she involved in financial troubles? Heck, she's going to tell a story later on about a girl who actually has been arrested and convicted and then went ahead and married a foreigner.
Yeah, that's something that, living at home in the States and Canada, it's not something that you think about on a regular basis, but here that's something that you may consider doing. More so because here, it's a girl is part of a big family, and it's, family can extend to who knows where.
All right, I think that's the topic, and a whole bunch more. We're going to talk Teasel, call Dan Stevens, call Doug Smith. Woody's hanging out in studio. Stick around, guys. This is This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
Sit back and relax. You are tuned into the Overseas Radio Network.
Looking to invest, live, or retire overseas? Before you pack your bags, you need to log on to nagellog.com. It's the only stop you need to make for global business, asset protection, estate planning, overseas residency, and citizenship needs. Our experts have experience working in 41 countries around the world. Starting a business abroad can be overwhelming without expert help. We assist clients with foreign trust, foundations, corporations, LLCs, IBCs, and property acquisition. Need help with IRA assets abroad, capital formation, foreign securities issues, banking, brokerage, or finance needs? NagelLaw.com. We ensure compliance with U.S. tax and regulatory laws. We engineer global structures to help our clients achieve their personal and business objectives. To find out about our introductory personal asset protection plan, visit NagelLaw.com. NagelLaw.com. We represent capital overseas.
Belize, an asset protection haven where English is the official language. If you've been considering protecting your assets with an offshore trust or foundation, look no further. An asset protection structure from Georgetown Trust will serve you and your family for generations to come. Your grandkids will be grateful for the legacy that you were wise enough to establish for them today. You'll rest easy because Belize has some of the most protective trust laws in the world, and it's all done in English. Georgetown Trust has served thousands of clients over the past 15 years with integrity, efficiency, and privacy. Georgetown Trust also serves as a registered agent for IBC's mutual funds and insurance companies. If you're an offshore service provider, inquire about wholesale structures to fit almost any offshore need. Visit our website today, www.georgetowntrust.com, and see how simple and affordable getting started can be. Mention ORN and receive $100 off a structure formation. That's www.georgetowntrust.com.
You've decided that you want to move overseas for that quality of life experience you've always dreamed of. But you don't want to give up the best of back home. We agree. Things like high-speed internet, safe neighborhoods where you can stroll along a shaded sidewalk, a place where you know your neighbors and you have friends close by. These are important. Grand Pacifica Beach and Golf Resort gives you the best comforts of back home paired with the exceptional lifestyle only available south of the border. Imagine strolling along over 3 miles of secluded beach, playing around a golf along the ocean, surfing a world-class break all to yourself, enjoying a fine meal on your balcony and toasting to another spectacular sunset. All this and more can be yours only an hour from Managua. Complete home and lot packages start under $100,000, and a nice home on the golf course is yours for the mid-twos. Come visit for a weekend and enjoy our oceanside golf course. Ride horseback on the beach, meet your future neighbors, and make some new friends. Grand Pacifica may be a place you'd like to call home. For more information, email Mike at mikesgringolife.com. That's Mike at mikesgringolife.com.
You're tuned in to overseasradio.com, the station to help you reach your dream destination.
This Week in Costa Rica is hosted by Canadian entrepreneur Corey Coates. Corey has been living and working as a professional in Costa Rica for over 5 years.
I've been lost in my own place, and I'm getting with it.
He's built a vast network of professional connections to help you with everything from immigration to relocation. Call in or send Corey an email to talk about the steps you need to take in making your dream of living in paradise a reality.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica, segment number 2. Means I'm going to get on the horn here, call into the greater San Jose area. Get Mr. Dan Stevens on the line, talk about what's going on all over this great country of ours. Dan's, of course, the editor and founder of the Costa Rican Times, Costa Rican with an N. One of my favorite publications to read each and every day. How are you, Dan?
I am great, Corey. How was your weekend?
You know, it hasn't been bad. Hasn't been bad at all. I really, I don't want to talk about basketball, but it was pretty disappointing to watch that game.
That game, correct, as well as that Toronto game's got to really hurt.
I didn't want to say it, but there it is. It's out there now. Yeah, I'm a Torontonian and a Leafs fan, and I started believing again, and it just didn't work out.
I started believing, and then up 4-1 with 8 minutes left in the game, and then wow, just it was a great game though. So I can't say that it wasn't a good game.
Well, I'll tell you, if you're a Boston fan, watching 2 goals in 31 seconds is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's great. Not many times you can actually see that in a series. So
kind of a stab through the heart for me though. But there's always next year, or I guess maybe if it's anything like normal Leafs playoffs. We'll be back in the playoffs again in another 8 or 9 seasons. So I'm going to hang on, hold my breath.
Nice. Well, I don't know if you've been reading up a little bit about, I got some inside information on a, quote, house invasion that happened in Escazú this past week. And a guy from your neck of the woods, well, kind of your neck of the woods, from Vancouver, has been living down in Costa Rica for a while. A guy named Brad Deering, it's a 42-year-old Canadian guy, was killed during this, quote, house invasion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did read about this in a couple of different publications. So, of course, anything like this gets everybody a little bit worried and concerned. And you're saying or suggesting that maybe there's more to it than that.
I from everything that I've heard about the situation, there's some red flags that pop up. I was actually contacted by a news source in Canada as well, and they're looking more into it. But from everything I've seen, they had 3 security guards or people dressed as security guards come into the house. So obviously it was quite organized. There were other people there that were tied up. They didn't hurt any of the other people, and they killed Brad. From information from different sources around that knew this gentleman, he was involved with a little bit of the shady side of Costa Rica, be it commodities and online pharmacies that didn't ship anything, and there was a lot of money that was going into his pockets and his investors. He had made some enemies along the way.
Okay.
So although they're saying it's a house invasion, it's looking more and more like it was a hit on this guy. The Canadian, I guess, tourism board actually put a warning on going down to Costa Rica, but I think that's a little bit misplaced because of the situation that was involved in this. Costa Rica is very, very, there's not very much violent crime that happens down here.
Right.
And this is kind of a rarity. And yes, it does raise some eyebrows but he lived an outlandish lifestyle down here. Well, a bunch of different cars, and he flashed around money. And after a while, if you're involved with different shady businesses, sometime karma will come back and bite you in the ass. So.
Well, I wouldn't want to speculate, but it does sound like that is the case. And I guess the takeaway from this is for a lot of the listeners out there and those that have read the story about this, to not think about Costa Rica as a place where violent crime is common. That is not the case. This is a very non-confrontational society. It's a lot of pickpockets, a lot of thievery, quite a few scams out there. But when it comes down to violent crime, this is not the place where you see it happen. It's not as prevalent. Let's put it that way.
Right. I mean, as long as you're not walking around drunk in a bad area of San Jose at like 2 a.m, then usually things like this don't happen.
Well, you've described every night that I've gone to San Jose, but that's another story. I made it unscathed. I don't know how.
Congratulations.
I want to switch gears here. There's a great story that you put on your publication, and it's called basically 5 questions about moving to Costa Rica. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes, and I'd love to dip into this because I think you've got some great questions there and some really good answers.
Yeah, I was reading a couple of articles online. I found this one, and I think it was very, very well written. When it comes to moving down to Costa Rica, everyone's like, oh, it's paradise. It's great. I can't wait. It's the beaches. 60% of the people that move here move home or move back to where they're from or move out of Costa Rica within the first year. So it's not for everybody. And I think a lot of times they come down here and they okay, I want to do this and this and this, and they find out that it's an uphill battle to get those things done, and the frustrations just aren't worth it. Costa Rica is for some people, it's not for others. And the questions we addressed in this article were the following. It's I want to move to Costa Rica. Yes, Costa Rica is beautiful, but there's also, check out Nicaragua and Panama too. Nicaragua is a lot less expensive than Costa Rica. And Panama is actually a lot more business friendly on opening up a business, bank account, buying a car, etc.
Sure, and their immigration laws in Panama are a lot easier going too.
Right, and that's one of that actually goes into our second one, which is establishing residency. Mm-hmm. Marrying a Tica or Tico, and in a woman's case down here, is basically the easiest way to get residency or getting sponsored by a company, which is not that easy to come by. I know it happened for you, but it's more of a rarity than it is for most people getting that done down here.
Right.
So a lot of people leave every 90 days to renew their visa, and getting that residency can take between 12 and 18 months even if you have everything in place.
Yep, I can attest to that.
So and then there's people that say, I want to live here permanently. You know what? The best idea for somebody that wants to live here permanently or buy real estate, etc., which is kind of knocking out the third and fourth points on this, is the fact that you should come down here and set up shop for between five and probably 8 months, and figure out where exactly you want to be in Costa Rica. I mean, for me, I've lived in Santa Ana, I've lived in Escazú, I've lived in Playa Grande, I've lived in different areas around Costa Rica, probably about 6 different places, and finally found a fit for me in Heredia. And I think that's the way it is for most people. If you want to live here permanently, I would say rent and try to find out the best fit for you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've advised that for anybody who wants to come down here long term. Is if you haven't spent more than 6 months in Costa Rica, you really don't know the country that well. That's our opinion. And rentals are so common, so affordable, and so easily accessible everywhere in the country. It just makes the most sense to come down here and grab a place for a little bit first. Get to know where you're going to be, because guess what? You might wake up one day and go, I don't like the humidity, or I don't actually like speaking Spanish, or who knows what. And you may have saved yourself a lot of heartache and a lot of money by just putting in yourself into a rental situation, and then you can just pick up and say, no, this is not for me later down the road.
Right. And the final point with a lot of people think when they come to Costa Rica is they want to open a business. And opening a business down here, as you can attest to, as well as I can attest to, is very, very difficult. The saying in Costa Rica, if you want to make $2 million, or if you want to make $1 million or something like that, you need to bring $2 million.
Sure.
And it's a statement that you hear all the time, but it's true. I mean, most of these people that want to, if you can find a business that's already up and running, that someone's willing to show you all the books on, and you just get a turnkey business, then I can say, okay, you know what, that maybe look into doing that. But starting your own business down here is very, very difficult.
100% agreed. I've done it, and it is not easy. Look, Dan, we got to run. I want to send everybody over to the CostaRicanTimes.com. Of course, there's going to be links to everything we talked about here today on This Week in Costa Rica. I want to thank you again for your time, Dan. Always great to talk to you.
All right, sounds great, Corey. You have a great rest of this week.
I certainly will. Everybody stick around. You are listening to Corey on This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
Live call-in shows and hosts from your favorite countries. This is the Overseas Radio Network.
I put out way too much trash to think about recycling. I just don't get it.
Some things are very obvious, Maria.
Learn the difference between trash and recycling and more on our website, yougottabekidding.org. Visit yougottabekidding.org today.
This is 90 Seconds with Joel Nagel on the Overseas Radio Network.
I have over $250,000 in assets I'd like to protect. Could you explain what an APT is?
Sure. An APT is short for an Asset Protection Trust. And this is quite simply the Cadillac of all asset protection strategies.
So what exactly does this Asset Protection Trust do for me?
It legally moves assets out of your personal name to a separate legal person. And when I say legal person, a juridical person, a person created by the contract, the trust itself, not a natural person. And this juridical person can simply not be sued in U.S. courts.
Now, considering that I've added this extra layer of protection to my assets through this APT, are there any other financial maneuvers or dealings that I can do through the APT as opposed to acting on my own behalf?
The Asset Protection Trust is also the foundational element to create, this foreign person to make investments that are closed to U.S. investors, such as hedge funds, foreign stocks, and various other non-SEC registered investment products. So there's a lot of reasons from an asset protection and from an investment standpoint that folks want to have an Asset Protection Trust, or APT for short.
For more information on the 15 global strategies to protect your wealth, visit NagelLaw.com. That's NagelLaw.com.
This is Kathleen Petticourt and Leif Simon with the Live and Invest Overseas Minute on the Overseas Radio Network. How would a move overseas affect your tax burden? The good news is that moving overseas as a retiree, earning only retirement income, should be a tax-neutral event. Any local tax obligation in the country where you relocate will depend on where and how your income while living there is derived, and foreign retirement income, Social Security income or pension income, for example, typically isn't taxed anywhere in the world.
Your tax situation can be more complicated, and it is possible that you could acquire a new tax burden in the country where you relocate if you have earned income or investment income in addition to your retirement income. That's why you need to seek experienced professional counsel on this before making your move. Once you've taken up residence in your new country, some options for mitigating and managing your tax burden could be taken off the table.
For more information on making the leap overseas, visit us online at liveandinvestoverseas.com.
You're tuned in to overseasradio.com, your online radio resource about life abroad.
What? What is it? This week in Costa Rica. Fun, informative, and your questions answered. Talk live with one of our on-air experts and start living your dream now.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. Big thanks to Dan Stevens from the Costa Rican Times, saving me the time to have to go through all the news, telling me what's going on in Costa Rica. Always appreciate that call. You can find links to his website on my website, thisweekincostarica.com. Hanging out with Woody today in the studio, talking on a number of issues. But you know what? I can't let this topic go. I'm a relatively young man, but not middle-aged. I don't know where that flies. It's like I'm not old, but I'm not young. 38.
Are you asking me where you lie?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the judgment here. I'm just going to sit back, wait for the judgment.
I don't want to be the judge on that.
But I'm a single man in Costa Rica.
I'll put it this way: you don't look 38.
I appreciate that. I don't know what part of me you're looking at.
I'm not saying older, younger, but you don't look 38.
All right. After the show, I'm going to show you a couple of parts of my body that do definitely look 38.
I really looking forward to that.
I bet. Mm-hmm. But here I am sitting as a single man in Costa Rica, and as we spoke, a lot of individuals do come down to this country, and rightly so, have an expectation that there is an opportunity to meet young, beautiful women who might be looking for an opportunity to get themselves into a relationship with a foreign man.
Absolutely. That's very much a situation that occurs many, many times here, which is why you need to think about what you're doing whilst you're doing it.
Whilst we are not here to make blanket generalizations. We're not going to paint this picture with a broad brush, but we are going to say that fairly so, there are quite a few young, attractive Costa Rican women who absolutely are very interested in getting into a relationship with an older American man for purposes that are outside of what we would consider typical emotional relationships. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. We're not going to blanket anything. I'm a little bit younger than what Corey is, but I've dated many, many, nice women here, and it was just that. It was fine. Many women here shy away from relationships with foreigners based on different aspects, but there is a very real situation that occurs, which you just mentioned, that they seek maybe older-ish men, American men, to pursue relationships for the purpose of monetary value or passports or leaving or whatever the case may be, depending on where they're from also.
Wow, you're not a lawyer, but you sound like one on the radio.
Cool.
Because if anything else, we're really dancing around the reality here. There's a lot of old men come down to Costa Rica to marry young women.
Yep.
Bottom line. And young women who are happy to have that relationship. But what we're getting at here is that we're going to call up Doug Smith and talk to him about what I was on the fence with. And at first it feels, for lack of a better word, a little bit icky to actually have a private investigator go out and do a little bit of due diligence, for lack of a better term again, on the girl that you're dating. But guess what? If you're getting yourself into a long-term situation with a girl in Costa Rica, typically the case is that you meet her family, you meet her priest in many cases, and you get to know them, and you feel comfortable that, hey, there's no way that there's anything in this girl's past or anything in this girl's history that she wouldn't reveal to me or that could be problematic in the future, right?
Well, you hope so, but in some cases, again, not in all cases, but in some cases, that's not the case.
But yeah, you never know.
If it maybe she didn't actually do anything herself, but her cousin or her brother or uncle or whatever that is somehow affiliated with her could bring you, if you choose to marry into that family, bring you into the equation. So you have to be super, super, super careful. And I agree, it's a little bit icky in our culture, to do a background check. But in these cases, maybe not the worst idea.
It's one phone call. It's like 300 to 400 bills, and you've got yourself all the information that you need to know that could save you tens of thousands of dollars and a lot of heartache in the future. Look, if I'm getting myself into a situation and I find out, 6 months down the road, that she has either been convicted of a crime or she has some sort of a restitutional obligation to an entity, as you're going to find out in this next story that we're going to tell. The thing is that actually can legally fall on me now. That burden becomes mine as her spouse.
Exactly.
If I can get that out of the way right away and know that I'm starting with a clean slate, then all the better.
I completely agree with that.
I don't want to belabor this topic, but I have been in a relationship, most recently with a girl where over the course of the relationship, an enormous amount of information was revealed. And I'm glad that was an honest situation. But at the end of it, I'm like, oh my God, this is a lot of baggage to take on.
Yeah, I mean, any relationship is complicated, and every person has complicated things or issues or whatever. But when you bring an international flavor into the equation, it complicates itself, tenfold.
I think the best thing to do then is to we'll have a chat with Doug here in the next segment, see what he has to say and see what he dug up and give a good case example, because this is not you and I just talking out of the top of our hats. I mean, this is a real situation that I think a lot of expats coming to Costa Rica, no matter what age, have to take into consideration.
Oh, for sure. And let's not, beat around the bush. The relationship that occurs, with older American men and younger Latin women is mutual. There's a mutual thing there. But at the same time, if you're that American person, you need to be careful and be aware of everything that could happen to you as you engage further in that relationship.
Well put. Again, you sound like a lawyer on this show. I just want to say.
Hey, I do my best.
Moving on to all things ESL. Like I said, we got quite a few emails in from a lot of people who are interested in what we're doing down here in providing the TESOL certification program here in Jaco Beach and making that move of our center from Coronado over to here. Again, big thanks to Andre for joining us last week and bringing up to speed what's going on with the TESOL organization globally. And now I think what we're finding is that a surprisingly easy transition to Jaco.
Much, much easier than I can say either of us ever thought it would be.
We had a great weekend this one where we basically went from location to location to establish where the school is going to be, getting all the promotional material printed and pressed, getting everything in place so that we can go ahead and legitimately and legally and everything get this thing opened up in Jaco. And it's just been nothing but a cakewalk here, which is honestly the opposite, the polar opposite of what I've heard so many expats saying when they're getting their business open in a foreign country like Costa Rica.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, we've been working on this school for a couple of months now, making contacts and going around and shaking some hands. But this weekend, it really all came together, and we finalized a whole bunch of things, location and material and et cetera. And it honestly has been super, super easy.
I have to say that there's something that has been kind of, itching at my brain here. And it's that I wonder if the ease with which we've been able to open this location here in Jaco has anything to do with the size of the community and the number of expats that are here versus the Central Valley and the San Jose area, where things generally are a lot harder to get done.
I think that has part to do with it, that it's easier to deal with some people like that. But also, I mean, we've been here, we've been doing it. You've seen it. We've been dealing with a lot of local people, a lot of Ticos, in what we've been dealing with. So maybe it's just a valley versus a beach thing. I don't know.
I think that's a fair point because, you and I have a lot of conversations about the differences between the folks who live in the Central Valley and the San Jose area and the folks that live on the coast. And there's a really remarkable difference between the two.
Well, we usually talk about the girl difference, but yeah, I think this extends to this example as well. We're talking with Ticos, with Costa Ricans, but with, who own businesses and run businesses, and et cetera, with regard to the Global TESOL School. And it's been great. It's been a good relationship. It's been a working relationship, and it's been very, very positive. I think you're right when we say if we were doing this in San Jose, if it was still in Coronado, if it was in San Jose now, it would not that it wouldn't be super difficult, but it would not be this easy.
It's funny because, I'm thinking a lot about a lot of the students who are coming down and going to be taking these programs month after month here in Jaco. And I think one of the things that's exciting for me is that the west coast of Costa Rica is honestly, it's an easier sail. I can only imagine if you and I were doing this right now in the Central Valley and in the San Jose area, it's very difficult to convince people to come down to San Jose and live, where it's really easy to get people to come down to Jaco and live on the West Coast by the ocean for 3 weeks, 4 weeks and take this program.
I think that's it. I mean, we're on the ocean. We're right on the coast. If you're going to come and live in San Jose, that's good, but it's super saturated and come to the beach, and it's not a hard sell for anybody to come live at the beach for a month, take the program and enjoy your life.
And what it speaks to is really a lot of the listeners who are thinking about what are the entrepreneurial opportunities in a place like Costa Rica. And, I hear people on either side of the fence. There are a lot of folks who say, look, Costa Rica is too hard. The ease of doing business is too low. It's just difficult to get bank accounts. And it's not the kind of place that you want to do things when there are other options in the world. But I don't know if that's entirely the case. Again, we're talking about painting things with a broad brush. It's very difficult to do this sort of an operation in the Central Valley, whereas here, look, we didn't even get in a taxi. We didn't rent a car. We didn't have to go anywhere. We're walking from block to block to block, pressing palms, talking to people, and seeing what the opportunities exist here within a small community. That small community spirit it really supports something like this that are going to bring foreign instructors down to Costa Rica who are going to make this country better.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I mean, we walked around maybe 20 minutes, half an hour everywhere. Jaco is not a huge town, so everything is within walking distance. Everything that we need, we can walk to. There's something to be said about what you mentioned about foreign investment, but I think that only applies to big companies that are coming here. That some of the government regulations make it difficult for. But if you're Intel, if you're HP, maybe it's a little bit more difficult. But for teaching English for our school, I would say those rules don't apply.
Great points. We're going to run a commercial break. Going to call up Doug Smith, talk about due diligence here in Costa Rica. Thank you so much, Woody, for joining us today.
Anytime, man.
You're listening to This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
So you want to jump out your trick bag, ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
You're tuned in to OverseasRadio.com, the station to help you reach your dream destination.
Georgetown Global Metals is a division of Georgetown Trust Ltd., an international financial services company headquartered in Belize with offices in Zurich, Switzerland, and Panama City, Panama. Georgetown Global Metals is a leader in the physical acquisition and storage of metals worldwide. The company utilizes the best and most state-of-the-art facilities in Switzerland, Germany, Singapore, and Panama to store metals inside or outside the customs borders of the countries in which we maintain storage facilities. Georgetown can also acquire and store virtually any strategic, industrial, or defense-oriented metal for our clients. Most metals can also be fully insured throughout the delivery and storage process with Lloyd's of London. For a free, no-obligation quote on any precious or other metals, acquisition, or storage, please contact Louis Eck at georgetown@btl.net. Mention you heard about Georgetown Global Metals on ORN and receive 1 month storage absolutely free. Again, that is georgetown@btl.net or telephone International Country Code Belize +501 226 3569.
Your perfect child has just been diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, a disease that leaves so many children subject to 30 insulin shots per day. This disease is caused by antibodies that attack insulin-producing pancreatic cells. Did you know that you can stop these antibodies and disease with an immunotherapy which uses the patient's own cells? We're here to answer your questions and to educate you on a non-invasive stem cell procedure using stem cells from the patient's own body. Get your questions answered by Dr. Alejandro Maesplace, whose research on stem cell therapy for diabetes is published in medical journals and applauded by medical professionals and professors at the University of Padua in Italy and Johns Hopkins University in the U.S. Treatment by Dr. Alejandro is the best choice of caring parents who prefer not to subject their child to any unnecessary risks or the negative side effects of chemical treatments like chemotherapy. Learn more at stemcellsjourney.com or call toll-free 888-806-6702. Also available on Skype, name @Maesplace.
Do you want to completely and legally end your obligations to the U.S. government, including your obligation to pay income tax on your worldwide income? The Nestman Group has experience in dozens of these cases, and we can show you how. Contact us at 1-602-604-1524 or on the web at www.nestman.com and sign up for our free blog. The Nestman Group, Wealth Preservation Solutions.
Live call-in shows and hosts from your favorite countries. This is the Overseas Radio Network.
You know what I just heard?
What? Costa Rica has the reputation of being the happiest country on earth.
But it gets better.
This Week in Costa Rica brings you the best information.
The best.
From the people who understand why so many choose to call this beautiful place home. Bringing you the latest information from expats, experts, and people just like you who chose to escape, retire, and live in Costa Rica. This Week in Costa Rica. Pura Vida.
And welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. Spending a lovely Monday afternoon here in the Overseas Radio Broadcast Facility, bringing you all the news and blues out of this beautiful little country we call the Republic of Costa Rica. I felt today that I want to bring you a little more information, make a phone call into one of my friends now. Mr. Doug Smith has a great company called willspy.com. And the idea with these guys is they can help you find out everything that you need to know. And I use the word need to know about the people you get involved with and the businesses you get involved with here. Doug and I had a great conversation earlier in the week about a gentleman who unfortunately got himself into a sticky situation with a lovely young girl that he married, largely because I don't think he did his due diligence. So why don't I turn this over to Doug? And first of all, say hello to you. How are you, Doug?
Hi, good morning. How are you today, buddy?
I'm incredible. Thanks so much for taking my call. Now, could you explain to me again, really, what is the necessity or the reality here with a lot of situations where if you get into a relationship, business or otherwise, with someone here, why would I need to do a background check on them?
Well, a lot of North Americans are somewhat naive. They think they can pull information from government websites and stuff. And the government websites down here are just not financed correctly to enter all the data. And unfortunately, or whatever, because of the laws here in Costa Rica, a lot of the data in the public forum, if you will, or public databases are illegal in a public database. So if you don't have access to a very good private database, there's no way in heck you can possibly get the information on not only a young lady that you think you're in love with or married to, but business partners and stuff like that. Because everybody's going to tell you that I'm perfect. And in reality, probably 90% of the time we start diving into, be it young ladies or prospective business partners, it's not true.
And even considering that, let's say that I get involved in a relationship, business or otherwise here, and I do a background check maybe 5-6 years ago on that girl or that business partner, you recommend that as part of my due diligence that maybe every 2 or 3 years I continue to have these investigations done, yeah?
Yeah, you need to do, for lack of a better term, a tune-up, okay, or a physical. Go back in and make sure nothing catastrophically has changed. This is, I'll give you a prime example. This is the one that I called you on because this is gut-wrenching. A real nice American guy. He's not a monger. He wasn't coming down here chasing bad girls, okay? About 5 or 6 years ago, fell in love with a Costa Rican girl. Married her. And I don't know if he did his due diligence on her initially, but he felt comfortable. He met all of the family. It was Christmas dinners down here, turkey empanadas, cranberry sauce, the whole deal. And he felt very, very comfortable. And again, this is 5-6 years. Well, I got a thing on Facebook, on private messages. Doug, I need an inexpensive appeal attorney fast. Well, inexpensive appeal attorney shouldn't even be used in the same sentence because that in itself is an oxymoron.
Right.
Appeal cases are the most expensive cases you'll ever hire an attorney for. So I asked him to give me a call, and this is what happened to the poor guy. He got a call the previous night that his wife had been arrested and sentenced to 6 years in prison. And he said that as far as he knew, she had never been arrested prior to the previous night. And he said, Doug, he said, I don't know if I'm getting scammed. I don't know what's going on. I got to have you jump on this and find out for me. Well, you know, the cliff notes are, we found out. Well, 6 years ago, this young lady had gotten into some kind of deal with a Colombian girl here on moving money, and there was no money. They arrested her 6 years ago initially.
Okay.
And charged her then. Well, for 6 years now, her aunts, her mothers, her fathers, her aunts, her uncles, the whole family had never told this North American that this was hanging over her head.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's married to her, and under the CASTA agreement, with him being married to her, he can be held financially responsible for her actions. And the other bad thing is in Costa Rica, on an appeal, you've only got 3 days to appeal it.
Ugh.
So he had to come up with my fee lightning fast just so I could find out what the bejeebers is going on. Then the guy is forced into coming up with a big chunk of money after I found him an English-speaking attorney that has the experience at doing appeal work and stuff like this, and one that I knew for sure would not play jack around the gringo.
Mm-hmm.
And so out of nowhere, like over a 3-day period, this poor North American, because even if he divorced her, he was already married to her, and they could still go back and attach his property, his income, his whatever up there in the United States. So he had to lightning quick come up with round numbers about $6,000-$7,000 out of his gluteus maximus.
Yep.
And there are many, many, many people that don't have $6,000-$7,000 they can put their hands on in a 2 or 3 day period.
No.
And if he had, you know, hindsight's 20/20. And I don't want to hear the thing, well, he was a dumb gringo. It's not being a dumb gringo. It's being a naive North American.
Right.
Okay? Because after you meet somebody's family and you're connected to them for 5 or 6 years, there is no way in heck you would think that their mother, their father, the aunt, the uncle with the turkey empanadas at Christmas time would ever blatantly lie to you, eyeball to eyeball and face to face. So this guy thought everything was hunky-dory. He was working on the paperwork to get his wife and her son up to the United States, and he gets a bombshell dropped on him. And, if there was a good thing, out of this, it looks like we stand about a 95% chance of getting this girl out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
But between the attorney fee and my fee, he's had to fork out 5-6 G's. Then we have to work out a payoff to the merchant that her and the Colombian girl robbed, supposedly.
Okay.
And that's $12,000. So this guy, in order to save his wife and his adopted son and his assets in the United States from not being attached as wages and stuff, he's got to come up with, in less than 30 days, somewhere around $18,000 cash.
Ugh.
And, that's a demonstrative hit for anybody. And he's not a high roller. He's a working guy like you and me.
So all of this really,
if he had, say, 2 or 3 years ago, contacted me and said, hey, just for the heck of it, why don't you run her again and do 1 or 2 days of surveillance and see what the heck my little dumpling is doing?
Mm-hmm.
We would have known about it, and he could have then either decided to keep his wife, and that's cool. I mean, I'm not a marriage counselor, or drop her then and start to cover his financial derriere before he has this bomb dropped on him. And, I mean, I'm sick for the guy, but I'm glad that we were able to help him.
Of course. That makes perfect sense. Now, we only have maybe about 3 or 4 minutes left before I have to go to news here, Doug. But similarly, this kind of due diligence service you guys provide on title searches. I mean, Costa Rica, for example, is legendary on real estate scams. How can these Americans or North Americans come down here and protect themselves before they get themselves into a real estate investment using your services?
Okay. You got to have your land, your property, or whatever independently checked out. You don't use the same attorney to do the due diligence you did the land deal with. Second, most important is, do not get lulled into false security over buying title insurance. The title insurance companies that North Americans are comfortable with, all they do is sell the franchise to a company here in Costa Rica. They are not held responsible for the dealings of that company in Costa Rica. Thus, if they don't pay off on the title insurance, you're tied up in court just like you never had it.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
So, and that's what happens. A lot of North Americans, they'll do something on a project down here, You've got to make sure that if the project is not complete, it's not key ready, make sure on whoever your developer is, you have written in stone X amounts to be paid at the foundation, X amounts to be paid at electrical and plumbing, just like you do in the United States.
Gotcha.
And the second that those dates are not met, you darn sure better be calling me lightning fast, because all that money that you've been forking out has already disappeared. In Costa Rica, if they do it right, they can sell you land that they don't own.
Wow. Okay, Doug, we're going to have Doug, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. I got to run the news here. As always, great talking to you. I'm going to bring you back on the show again so we can continue this conversation. We're talking to Doug Smith at WillSpy. It's willspy.com. I'm going to put the link on my website as well, guys. Doug, thank you so much for your time. I wish I had all day to talk to you about this.
No problem. You're a good guy. I'm glad I could maybe help a little bit.
Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I promise you next week we will do 2 hours together. ThisWeekinCostaRica.com is the website for all of the show notes. Don't forget, we're on Facebook and Twitter as well. You guys have a great week. Catch you on the flip.
So you want to jump out your trick bag and ease on into hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip.
Ready to learn about a new life overseas? You're at the right